guys. For everybody in the back, if you could take your seats, that would be great. Welcome back. How was the workshops this afternoon? Woo! That is great. I poked my head in a bunch of them, and it looked like it was really good energy and good discussion, and I hope that they were useful for all of you. I feel dressed oddly, and I apologize to all of the CWAers in the house. I know it's Red Thursday, and I put on a green top because it's the Blue-Green Alliance Conference, but I want to give a special shout out to all of you in red today, and for everybody from the communication workers that joined us. So, as we talked about before, BGA is a partnership of unions and environmental organizations. And last year, we went on the offense and launched the Jobs 21 campaign as part of the Blue-Green Alliance. We wanted to highlight the positive ways that we actually can create jobs. 7 million jobs stand to be gained by investing in clean energy solutions, whether we do that in renewable energy, energy efficiency, manufacturing, transportation, broadband, internet, smart grid, green chemistry, and recycling. And Jobs 21 is the anchor campaign for the Blue-Green Alliance for the past year. And when we launched this campaign, we knew that we also needed really strong leadership to help us in guiding these efforts. And we brought in 2 exceptional co-chairs, and one of them is here today. Former Michigan Congressman Mark Schauer, who's a Jobs 21 co-chair. Mark has significant experience both as a lawmaker and as a grassroots organizer. Before he was elected to Congress, he ran a community action agency and served in the Michigan House as Assistant Democratic Leader and in the Michigan Senate as the Minority Leader. He has been a strong voice for building a green economy with good jobs and making Jobs 21 a huge success, not only in Michigan where he lives, but around the country. So please join me now in welcoming Mark Schauer, Blue Green's Jobs 21 co-chair.
Hello. It's so great to be with all of you, and I want to thank you all for coming to the Blue-Green Alliance Good Jobs, Green Jobs South Regional Conference. You can see we're doing 4 of these, and besides being in Detroit later in May, I had my pick of where I could come, and I chose Atlanta to be here, to be with you. And it's a nice side benefit that when I woke up in my home in Battle Creek, Michigan, there was snow on the ground. So I looked at the weather and told my wife it's going to be 75 in Atlanta today. But it really gives me pleasure to be in the home of someone you heard from this morning, one of my former colleagues, John Lewis, who is just, what do you say, about a civil rights hero and pioneer. And when I first met him in my freshman orientation as a member of Congress in 2008, I went up and just hugged him. And I said, I hope it's okay if I hug you. So it's what a great compliment to your work that John Lewis greeted us this morning. It's exciting to see people from all walks of life, from workers in the green economy, those training our current and future workers, policymakers on every level, union members and leaders, and people who've dedicated their lives to protecting our environment. Around the country, there's much attention paid to the green jobs aspect of Good Jobs, Green Jobs in our regional Good Jobs, Green Jobs conferences. But today I want to talk about good jobs. Building a better economy, an economy that rewards innovation and hard work, means that the jobs we create by greening our country need to be good jobs, jobs that are safe and are providing good wages and good benefits, with workers that have strong rights to keep those jobs that way. People all around the country, from Indiana to Wisconsin to New Hampshire to Missouri to my home state of Michigan, are feeling how people in the South have felt for far too long. Right-to-work laws, efforts to limit or prohibit collective bargaining, and other politically motivated attacks on workers' rights are nothing new here. These are battles that have been fought in the South for decades. But no worker should lose their right to a safe workplace and fair pay and benefits. No family should lose their right to a strong community. No company should be unaccountable to its workforce and be allowed to make things that are unsafe or dangerous. So, I'm the national co-chair of Jobs 21, and it's an effort coordinated by the Blue-Green Alliance, as you know, a national partnership bringing together strategically labor unions and environmental organizations with one simple goal: create and keep the jobs of the 21st century here in America. I got our previous workshop going with a couple of amens, so, you know, just feel free. The jobs of the 21st century are in sectors like renewable energy, energy efficiency, manufacturing, transportation, recycling, broadband internet, smart grid, recycling and green chemistry. And we know that these jobs we're fighting for must also be good jobs. All too often, we know there are those who want to slow down our movement, right? They want to give us false choices. Sometimes they say we have to choose between jobs and the environment. Other times it's a choice between jobs and strong rights for working people. But those are false choices. Those choices are wrong. This false choice is set up to make us accept that we can't and shouldn't have both. The truth is, we can and must have good jobs that are good for our environment. And to ensure those are good jobs, we need to protect and defend the rights of working people. To win the jobs of the 21st century and keep America's economy strong, we must have good green jobs. To ensure a better life and better jobs for all Americans, we must have good green jobs. To leave a better environment for our children and their children, we must have good green jobs. To reduce our dependence on foreign oil and to manufacture our own clean energy future, we must have good green jobs. Thank you. To ensure that Americans, generations from now, and I'm a grandfather, believe it or not, so that my grandkids and yours have a lasting economic and environmental foundation to build their own American dreams on, we must have good green jobs. And we can have those good green jobs. We can have those good green jobs. But you know what? We're going to have to work for it and work for them. And I'll say fight for them. And our work, our struggle can't just be for one or the other. It must be for both. Today and tomorrow, we'll all be sharing our stories with people from the South and all around the country about building a green economy. Listen to these voices. Listen to these stories and share your own. Take these lessons, this work, and these victories, big and small, and together we can use them in our lives every day to win the effort for good green jobs in America in the 21st century. Thank you very much. This is fun. I introduced myself as a recovering politician in the last panel, so I don't get these chances to, you know, this is our work, right? This is our common work, and that's what Jobs 21 is about. I'm going to now introduce someone. It gives me an incredible pleasure to introduce Larry Cohen. Larry, and when I was in the state legislature, Larry, I saw a lot of red shirts around our Capitol fighting for jobs, and we helped them do it, and we won some of those important battles. So it's an honor for me to introduce you, Larry. Larry Cohen is the president of the Communications Workers of America and is a persuasive and passionate voice for working Americans and the rights of working people. Now, CWA is the largest telecommunications union in the world, representing over, all right. They represent over 700,000 men and women in the private and public sectors. CWA members are in telecommunications, broadcasting, journalism, publishing, manufacturing, airlines, healthcare, education, and other fields. And I'm proud that CWA is one of Blue Green Alliance's national partners. Larry Cohen has expanded and mobilized CWA, and he is a leading voice focusing attention on the crisis in collective bargaining in the United States and the need for real reform. He founded Jobs with Justice in 1987 and is also a founder of American Rights at Work, of which I serve as a board member. Join me in giving a warm welcome to the President of the Communication Workers of America, Larry Cohen.
Thank you. Thank you, CWA, standing up there. Great to be here. So Mark got to choose two of these regions. I get to choose one, and I chose Atlanta. Great to be here in the South. We're fighting back across the South, right? No one's giving up. We're standing up. We're fighting back. We're on our feet. We're ready to fight, right? Okay. So on your chairs is something that looks like this. And CWAers recognize it because the last month or so, we've been focused on this. And I hold it up because if you could pull it out, that'd be great. This is going to be more about that than a speech, because I'm really here to say that the only way out of the crisis we're in is to dig much deeper than we're used to. This crisis is an economic crisis. It's certainly a crisis about workers' rights. It's an environmental crisis that gets worse every day. But fundamentally, it's a democracy crisis. Now, several of the CWAers that are here have been camping out recently with Occupy Atlanta. Who's been doing that? Any of you been doing that? Stand up. Walter, I know you've been sleeping outside. Stand up. Yeah, there we go. And one of the bright spots of 2011, and I realize everybody in the room, we have some corporate support here too, and we appreciate that. But for those of us coming from labor in the heart of the green community, 2011 was a year of resistance. It's not business as usual. My brother Walter is not used to, at least recently, sleeping outside, fighting the battle to keep jobs at AT&T, which is what he's been doing the last 10 days. It's not business as usual. It wasn't business as usual when students, graduate students, public workers, private sector workers, 100,000 or more strong marched on Madison, Wisconsin a year ago, right? That was not business as usual. It wasn't business as usual when in Ohio a surge of political activity occurred, and by a landslide we repealed Senate Bill 5 to preserve public sector bargaining rights. That wasn't business as usual, right? It wasn't business as usual when 45,000 Verizon workers walked off the job in August. Not so much to get a new contract as to send a signal across the country that these kinds of cuts by corporations like Verizon, $100 billion company, not bankrupt, but in fact profits growing and soaring and CEO pay growing and soaring. And yet they come to the workers at Verizon and say, we need to cut your health care. We need to cut your pension. We need to cut your jobs, exporting jobs to Asia, even as we stand here now. Call center jobs, tech support jobs, not just the manufacturing jobs that so many steelworker and other sisters and brothers here are familiar with, jobs being shipped out of America, as Mark talked about, day after day, year after year, decade after decade. So we know what the crisis is. We know that in 2011, resistance hit a new level in the streets, in the parks, in the communities, in the state houses, from the Midwest to the South, as elected officials, if we call them that, attempted to gut our rights, public and private sector alike. And at the same time, most of corporate America cutting our jobs, shipping our jobs out of the country, and cutting our rights as well. So, in CWA, we said, what can we do that's different? And Blue-Green Alliance is very much central to this. And so this chart is titled The 99%. And in the latest issue of the CWA News, you see a flag, and this whole issue is about what we call broken democracy. The democracy is broken as the 1% takes over virtually everything. And as critical as the election is this year, you won't hear us say in our union, this is the most important election ever. We might have said that in 2008. We ain't going to say it. Because as important as the election is, what's more important is how do we build a new movement for democracy and economic justice and environmental justice in America? How do we build that movement? What does that look like? And so on this picture or slide, you see the top part of the slide is what we've been working for. In the center there is what we've been working for in CWA and other unions too, but this was a CWA slide. Secure jobs, fair trade, health care for all, retirement security, bargaining and organizing rights. When we came in as a founding member of Blue-Green Alliance, joining the Steelworkers, Sierra Club, NRDC, and then others have joined since. We welcome every partner. For us, we knew even then, years ago, that we would not achieve bargaining and organizing rights in this country if just labor worked on it. And those environmental partners from the beginning said, yes, you stand up for climate change in a deep way, not just an easy way, by the way. We're talking about in a deep way. Working people, you fight with us for climate change, and we get it, that we have to fight for workers' rights. Because there'll be nobody to fight for climate change if there are no workers' rights. And that was a founding notion. And so you see on partner issues, number one, climate change, and number two, DREAM Act, and number three, fighting against the foreclosures, which here in Georgia has been devastating and across the country. And over on the left side there, you see President Obama, much more modest goals. Fairer taxes, infrastructure projects, public service. His agenda. It's all blocked by this wall. You don't see it as well here because it's not in color, but it's fine. You get the idea. The wall is the limits of our democracy. Campaign finance, billionaires now dominating really both political parties. You're going to have a $2 billion election in 2012. Is that a shock that our core agenda is going to be missing when that kind of money is involved the way it is? The Koch brothers have an annual meeting of billionaires, literally. 8 or 10 of them sit there and they say, okay, we're each going to give at least $10 million this year to make sure our agenda dominates this country. And they are doing that. Last year, this year, they have a plan. Our democracy is blocked then by the dollars in politics, and the Occupy movement across the country has been as much about that as anything else. The billionaires and the grip they have. The Senate rules. We would have had the Employee Free Choice Act. We had a majority in the Senate. 60% of the House voted for it. That would have given workers in the private sector a path to at least have a seat at the table, have bargaining rights, have union recognition. Blocked in the Senate by rules that are worse than the rules in the 1960s that prevented, for a time, the civil rights agenda of Lyndon Johnson. But in the 1960s, those racist senators had to take they had to stand up and speak all night and spout their racism. And eventually they were worn down. And those civil rights bills were passed. Today in the U.S. Senate, one senator can block a nomination. One senator blocked climate change legislation that had passed the House from coming to the floor. One senator could block the Employee Free Choice Act. 400 bills adopted by the House in the last Congress, not this one, never were spoken about for 1 second on the floor of the U.S. Senate. The filibuster took on a new meaning where they never had to talk. All they had to do was raise their hand. And then it took 60 senators to get the bill to the floor, and then 60 senators again to cut off amendments, and then 60 senators again to get a final vote. And so almost nothing was ever debated, let alone passed. And voter suppression, states like Georgia, Florida, Texas, 38 states, Ohio, not just here in the South, have passed or are about to pass the worst voter suppression legislation in this country since Jim Crow. They have a plan, the Koch brothers, to shrink the democracy, to make sure that there's no legalization path for immigrants. And in neighboring state here of Alabama, you have the worst anti-immigrant legislation ever passed in this country. And these four things together are the limits, the blocks on our democracy, so that the things that we were founded for here in BGA, climate change, workers' rights, economic justice, there's no path to it. It's blocked. And what you see here is an arrow, 7 to 10 years. And next to that arrow, you see coalition of labor plus partners, 50 million plus. That is the kind of movement we are building and need to build. Much deeper, frankly, than what any of us signed up for. You know, I spent my life in this union, so did my sisters and brothers that are here, not just from our union, but others that are here. Many of you have worked for environmental justice for a lifetime. But we have to be realistic. It's not just about the next election. We've got to bring a democracy to this country that fits the 21st century. A democracy where when we vote for change, like we did in 2008, we get change. Not where we vote for change and then are told, well, now get ready for the next election because we're sorry we can't get that agenda considered. And so, as we are here these days, and we will soon hear a panel to talk about how we work together for environmental justice, for decent jobs, for good jobs, for green jobs. Our challenge is to think about when we go back to our states, and I know that the CWAers that are here from Virginia and Georgia and Florida and Texas, and maybe I left out another one, but are very committed, just as we have done with the Sierra Club, to do joint education. And some of you were at a workshop on that, and I think there's another one tomorrow afternoon. But to do joint education together about what kind of membership in the movement can we build together. Much deeper than just, on the surface, we support this, you support that. Think of that notion as more of a tossed salad where, you still have a tomato, you still have a carrot. We're going to need to create more of a smoothie if we want to stick with food. Anybody hungry? Where at least part of our lives are blended together. That we're building a movement for democracy and economic justice for years to come, that's much deeper than the next election, that's much deeper than any piece of legislation, because we realize that meaningful fight against climate change is beyond reach, at least on the federal level, and much of the state work is preempted, although great work can be done on the state level. That virtually all of the legislation for workers' rights is out of reach. This is what we tell our best activists. We'll have 10,000 of them on the phone tonight. Every month, we hear stories, and Walter Andrews will be on there talking about Occupy Atlanta as one of 6 or 7 of our frontline fighters on that call tonight with 10,000 CWAers. But for a year, we've been saying on those calls to these most active members, we're going to have to go much deeper. We're going to have to build a democracy for the 21st century, much like sisters and brothers are doing in Tunisia or in Egypt. Not what we thought was in store for us in the oldest democracy in the world. And this election, as important as it will be, is not the defining moment it was in 2008, because we now know that democracy is out of reach and that we will have to build a movement much broader than we dreamed of. And whether we're an immigrant or not, we're going to have to act as if we are. And whether we're a person of color or not, we're going to have to act as if we are. And whether we're a union activist or not, we're going to have to act as if we are. And whether we're an environmentalist or not, we must act as if we are. Because if we act together, we can build that movement. We can bring democracy to this country for the 21st century. We can fight for economic justice. We can put the 1% in the place where they belong, as 1%. And the rest of us can stand up and fight back as the 99% that we are. So let's stand up and fight back. 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 Thank you, Blue Green Alliance.
Thank you. Thank you, Larry. Thanks for getting us all on our feet. And even though we're not going to stay seated, we need to keep that spirit in the work that we have ahead of us. And we're now going to do a second plenary panel. And again, I invite you to think about questions and to participate. We're going to have the same as we did this morning with people lining up asking questions. And this panel, which will feature leaders from nonprofit, labor, and business communities, will focus on the components that we need to leap forward and create millions of good green jobs in the emerging industries. And rebuilding America takes us and forces us to become a country where we actually make things again. We sort of lost our way on that, and there's not that much that we make here. But we also see that there is a lot of developments. Manufacturing is coming back. We see what's happening in Detroit in terms of auto. We know that we can make the wind turbines here and the 8,000 component parts that go into each of them. And the moderator of our panel today, he knows a few things about the importance of manufacturing to our economy and to our economic future. Scott Paul is the executive director of the Alliance for American Manufacturing, which is a unique partnership that was created between the United Steelworkers and leading U.S. manufacturers. Scott has 20 years of experience in policy, politics, and advocacy. His writings have appeared everywhere from the New York Times and Washington Post to regional publications. And I invite you to join me in welcoming Scott Paul and our next panel.
Good afternoon. Larry Cohen was awesome. It is both humbling and an honor to follow him, and we hope to keep the volume up in a different way, if we can, by talking about some issues that are near and dear to all of us. This panel will be talking about the clean energy jobs plan for the 21st century. And we're lucky to have a number of unique perspectives. I obviously bring manufacturing to the table as the moderator, but we have the service sector, we have investors, we have advocates who work with young people and on college campuses. We have people familiar with working with utilities and with the federal and state policy. And so we're going to see by the end of this, and with your help as well through your questions and comments, as if we can construct some of those good ideas that reflect what's in the Blue Green Alliance Jobs 21 plan. I will briefly introduce the panelists, and then I will take a seat myself and we'll start the discussion. We'll have a couple of rounds of questions up here, and then we will open it to the audience. And on my cue, the microphone's right there, and we'll hope to get as many questions as we can. I'm pleased to be joined by, from left to right on the stage, I'm not saying that's their politics, that's just the way they're lined up. Shannon Smith, who is the CEO and managing partner of Abundant Power based in Charlotte, North Carolina. and the father of 2 sets of twins, which is awe-inspiring to me. I only have one. I feel like an underachiever. Please welcome Shannon. Steve Leffen, next to him, is the Director of Global Sustainability at United Parcel Service, UPS, based here in Atlanta, Georgia. They have, I think, 400,000 employees in the United States, and many of whom are represented by the Teamsters Union, along with some by the Machinists Union and the airline pilots as well. Please welcome Steve. We also have Debbie Nissan, who is the Vice President of Ulico Investment Advisors, which is part of Ulico. They make strategic investments in all sorts of amazing things, and we welcome Debbie, who joins us from Washington, D.C. to talk about that. Please welcome Debbie. And finally, we have with us Felicia Davis, who is the Program Director of the Institute for Capacity Building's Facility and Infrastructure Enhancement Program at the United Negro College Fund, also based here in Atlanta. And we're honored to have Felicia with us. Thank you. And I think I'll start with Shannon, and I thought it would be helpful for you all to see the perspective that each of us bring to the clean energy jobs discussion. So maybe, Shannon, you can tell us a bit about your work at Abundant Power, what you were doing, and some of the insights. I know you have a deep understanding and appreciation for public policy with regard to the clean energy sector as well.
So thanks, Scott. Yeah, besides having 2 sets of twins who I want to have good jobs, green jobs when they get older, we started Abundant Power Group in Charlotte, North Carolina back in 2009. And it's a financial service company. And it's a financial service company dedicated to providing capital, investment capital, to the clean energy economy, broadly speaking. And we have a business that is investing in growing companies. It's a growth equity capital business. So it's not private equity like it's been vilified. It's all about growth. It's all about jobs. It's all about plants. It's all about helping the winners win after the venture capitalists are done, helping them grow. We have a group of people working on energy efficiency finance, creating models for investing in that retrofit world, as well as leveraging governments and helping what the government has been doing to spur that part of the economy. We were the founding partner with President Obama in the Better Buildings Initiative, and are working as the advisor and designer on the DC PACE program in the District of Columbia, along with some others here in the East Coast. And then lastly, we have a group of folks that are working on clean schools project in low-income areas, primarily in the Carolinas right now. We hope to bring that to Georgia and other places around the country. So we have groups of people, all of whom have actually repurposed their careers. Folks that got laid off from various jobs at some of the banks and other financial institutions in Charlotte, who believe in the vision of a clean energy economy, that we're not going to drill our way out of this, and who think that they can take a skill set they perfected in one space and repurpose it toward solving these problems and bringing capital into them. I think the only way this sustainable economy becomes sustainable is if it has a robust profit motive that benefits everybody. And that is the most sustainable thing of all. So that's what we're trying to do, create instruments that will work and will scale. The only thing I will say is that we do want to be a commercial voice in the public square. And hopefully we'll have time to talk about that. But what I think is important to drive a broader green economy that we all hope for is to have stronger commercial voices in that dialogue. It cannot just be environmentalists. It may not just be able to be labor. It can be labor through a commercial mandate of why we need to do this. And if we can join together, I think we'll have a better legislative outcome. So that's one of the things our company is dedicated to being. We're not just going to sit back and make payroll and do our job. We're also going to raise our hand and speak up for the legislative needs that will drive this economy forward.
Good. And Shannon, I'm glad I mentioned better buildings, because we're going to want to return to that in a bit of the low-hanging fruit we see in retrofits. Felicia, but you at the United Negro College Fund and the work that you do both with young people and then obviously the facilities that you're able to work with as well.
Let me say that, first of all, how pleased I am to be among such distinguished panelists. And I think in planning for this session, I gave a lot of thought to kind of how did we get here and where are we going. Working with UNCF's Building Green Initiative, we work with Black, Hispanic serving, and tribal institutions that certainly are struggling not only to retrofit their buildings, but also to educate students in a more sustainable curriculum for these supposed green jobs that for many of those students have not materialized. So it's kind of challenging in terms of the moment. But as looking at the opening and sitting here and thinking about, okay, we've got equity and investment, there's something that I think this audience knows fundamentally, and I'm flashing back to 4 years ago, 2008. You know, everybody knows where they were election night, and when the CNN announced, okay, President Obama has won. Some of us celebrated, went wild. I happen to have been with Dr. Dorothy Height. She owns a building, she's passed now, but owns a building on Pennsylvania Avenue, in between the Capitol and the White House. And after we celebrated, a Canadian reporter asked Dr. Height, what does this moment mean? And she quoted a great labor leader, A. Philip Randolph, who said, at nature's banquet table, there are no preferred seats. You get what you can take, you keep what you can hold, and you don't get anything without organizing. So as I come into this space and I'm looking, the speech before I was all revved up and I'm looking at what's number 4, I'm thinking, well, education and training isn't directly there. And even though I really rather say in the space of energy efficiency and retrofits and how HBCU buildings are so old that it's the lowest hanging fruit. The fruit's on the ground. If we don't pick it up soon, that fruit will be rotten. But there's a piece that we're not going to be able to get there if we don't even take it to a deeper level, because the collective is not necessarily with organized labor. As people are out there and struggling, and yes, we have the Occupy, yes, we know we're in the 99%, but as we're engaging with students on these campuses, there has to be some real outreach and development with this group who have student IDs, no voter IDs, and we're thinking that we're trying to build a green infrastructure. So I believe, I would open up by saying what I think is most important is capital, equity, and profit and growth notwithstanding. I think dignified jobs for people is the #1 goal in America. I think that if we can have a message that says jobs with dignity as the overarching paradigm, rather than typically going back to saying, okay, where's the profit incentive? So with that, as I travel to institution, we're finding that we're retrofitting building by building. So we don't have a campus-wide zero carbon demonstration. We also don't have a public, we talk about climate deniers, a lot of people in the public don't know what to believe. So I think that we have to, on this list, engage the public in monitoring. We can teach people to check the temperature and record it. And we've now got global data systems. Let's engage all of the labor union members in reporting that. Let's find new ways that people are looking at their soil, looking at their water, looking at the stocks, where they fish, where they hunt, the things that they do. That will bring new people into a movement that is 99%, but we got to get the other 30% that's not quite with us. So I'm going to stop there and let my other two colleagues join in.
I think that's a very important perspective. And unless we get the next generation bought in, actually it's going to be much harder to achieve any of these goals. That's absolutely right. Well, Debbie, at Ullico, you obviously make strategic investments. Tell us about the relationship of that to the clean energy economy.
And I'd like to tell you first a little bit about who Ullico is.
Please do.
And thank you very much for having me. I've been following this conference and attending in DC for several years and was happy to go on the road with you this year. Ullico was founded in the 1920s. A group of labor leaders got together and said that they needed to form a company to provide insurance to union members who couldn't get it because their work was too risky. So the company has grown and evolved over the years. Like any other insurance company, we have insurance products, we have fiduciary insurance products for you trustees out there and union officers, and we have investments. We have a 35-year-old product, a debt real estate product called J for Jobs that has only done projects using 100% union labor. We have some other investment equity type investments, but this year we launched an infrastructure fund and infrastructure business, and it has what I believe is one of the strongest responsible contractor policies there. So I'm really speaking to the good jobs, because when we do infrastructure investments, it's going to create a cleaner economy by nature of the work. But our responsible contractor policy is not just for construction, but it's also for maintenance, operations, and manufacturing where we can find it manufactured here. And so we're working on that.
That's fantastic. I think that's great. And the investment side is something we have to bring that capital to the table to make this work. Steve, UPS obviously has a big footprint, lots of employees, large vehicle fleet, packages going everywhere, airplanes going all over the place. Yet you are a company committed to sustainability, and you have a solid relationship with your workers as well. Why don't you talk a bit about?
We absolutely do, and thank you. I'm thrilled to be here and appreciate the opportunity to speak. UPS, as most folks know, we're a very large employer. Depends what day it is, but we're third or fourth or fifth employer, or private employer in the U.S. We have the largest ground fleet in the U.S. of any company. We're the 9th largest airline in the world. So we have lots of folks, lots of airplanes, lots of vehicles, and we take a sincere interest in sustainability. Our mantra is measure, manage, and then mitigate. And we demonstrate that through many things. You had mentioned that you read our sustainability report, and we appreciate that. So we have a climate change statement in our sustainability report. We put a sustainability out well before our competitors, one of the leaders in the space. We've done a sustainability report for 9 years now. There's something called the Carbon Disclosure Project, which is, in our eyes, one of the most important renderings. It's an assessment of reporting transparently about carbon. UPS has the best score of any company in the United States, and actually the best score in the world, tied with 3 other companies. So we take transparency very, very seriously. There's something called the DJSI, which is an investor perspective, the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, and we're on the North American Index for the DJSI. We take a very credible approach to measuring our impact and then managing that through a host of different domains that I'm sure we're going to talk about a little bit more. So appreciate the opportunity to speak here today.
That's great. One of the things that actually Shannon suggested that I read, and it's a McKinsey report on resources in the future, and it's a lengthy report, but it's actually worth taking a look at. It's very eye-opening. But one of the things that they identified is that one of the best rates of return for investors, and also something that will do the most societal good, is these energy efficiency type efforts, particularly with buildings. So in addition to obviously the work you're doing at Abundant, what federal, state, incentives, programs do we need to keep this rolling and to get more buy-in?
Well, I think there's a bill that was just introduced last week on the congressional side that was started in the Senate that is a Portman-Sheehan bill, which would open up a number of programs that don't exist now for energy efficiency and move them forward. There is also the notion of a clean energy standard that has been talked about on both sides of the aisle that would incorporate energy efficiency, but also renewable energy, which I think, while not necessarily a mandate, since most of this is controlled at the state level by public utility commissions, sets a guidepost and opens up new dialogues and conversations at the state level, which could be fruitful. So I think, those two things, along with perhaps some of the language that is being discussed currently on the Hill around property assessed clean energy, which is a way to finance energy efficiency on the property tax bill for both residential and commercial, would be the most promising legislative projects, in my opinion. I mean, the more we can put in sort of sustainable programs and rules and get out of the way and not manage it through the tax code, I think that'll have a longer term, have better longer term prospects for surviving political wins than tax code based support, although I think some of the tax code based incentives have been effective. But I just think they're more politically vulnerable.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we've seen some expire just within the last couple of months here that I know people are keenly interested in obviously seeing continue, 1603, 48C, just to throw out numbers, things like that.
And I co-chair a PAC that has been created. It came from the Clean Energy Economy, which was birthed by the Clean Tech for Obama group. They created a group that has now been refunded and renamed the Advanced Energy Economy. And we have a PAC, an independent PAC now, that will be standing hopefully alongside coal and oil and all the other big fossil fuel industries and trying to shape and influence and be part of that same dialogue on the Hill. And that's been lacking. And is one of the tools that's necessary to drive this agenda forward, I think.
Well, that's great. So, Felicia, you said something interesting, that a lot of the buildings at the campuses you work with on historically black colleges and also tribal institutions and others are desperately in need of energy retrofits.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about that.
The challenge, the buildings are old, that underscore historically black. So buildings that can be upwards to 100 years old. If you're on a tribal campus, they inherit stocks that come from the 1940s with the World War II buildings, and they inherit them as kind of barracks that turn into housing. So great opportunities for retrofitting. Sometime in terms of the credit worthiness of some of these institutions given previous challenges make the financing formula a bit challenging. However, if you have a building that's, so old that there is almost no envelope, then the opportunity for savings to, paid for savings opportunities are great. I'm understanding that a number of these institutions have gone through earlier rounds of performance contracting. They did not turn out, they kind of got burnt. So it's really hard bringing them back in, that's one. And then two, some of us are really pushing, if the federal government is going to invest in education, then if we were, at least we should have one state-of-the-art black college. What would that do? Say we picked Atlanta with the Atlanta University Center, well-endowed, two pretty well-endowed institutions, Spelman and Morehouse, a research institution, Clark Atlanta. Clark has been struggling to build a $50 million, living learning lab standard building. If that investment went into the AU Center, what it would do for the surrounding community would be enormous. So as we're talking about how do we leverage, those are the kinds of partnerships I think the institutions have been removed somewhat from the folks up here, and have, I'm sure, never really looked hard at How do we align with perhaps labor financing opportunities? So it's been kind of looking at what's the government going to give. And that day is past, that's understood. At the same time, if we're going to invest in education, putting in an infrastructure is not a bad place. If the overhead goes down, the cost passed on to students reduces. So right now we have our institutions, typically a student may spend $30,000 per year, tuition, room, and board. That's not going to be competitive in terms of what comes out. So that's the argument that I use. I'm getting lots of presidents on board. They're signing the president's climate commitment administered by Second Nature. We work a lot with HE, Environmental Defense Fund. We're partnered with them to do energy audits. So once we get the audits, people will be more interested. So we're moving, but in my opinion, we need that big mega demonstration model that we all invest in. And the neat thing about doing it at Black College is there's something about when Black folks do it and get it done, then everybody else is supposed to already have been there. So it's really a good mover. It's like, wow, they did that in the hood, what are we doing over here? So it really, so it's kind of, we have to be strategic because resources are really limited. So we have to be strategic. People have to be put to work. So as much as we talk about big picture and issues, people have a hard time wrapping their minds around issues if they can't pay bills. So it's kind of a losing proposition. Right. So it's, with that, it's, as I sit here, I'm in between because we tend to look at, even when we say, well, we can't use tax policy so much, it's like almost scrap that conversation. We just got to come together and say, look, we're going to pull it. We want to do it right there. We're all invested in it. It's kind of like building a pyramid. If everybody has something in the game, when it's done, we say, aha, we have a victory. People need a win. We really need a win. So that's my little stump speech.
Sounds good to me. Now, I asked you about the buildings. Now, what about the kids in the buildings? What is it going to take to get them interested in, in these green jobs, which, very widely, obviously?
They're interested in green jobs. They got some of us interested in green jobs. So it's like, they tell me all the time, Ms. Davis, don't get it twisted. We're already there, We're already global, You're still typing on a big old laptop. We got it, So we can do it in 140 characters. So they get it, but if we move out of the area of, say, the engineering, the hardcore engineering, and then we move over to what are the other green jobs? Moving these chairs and stacking them up, that can be a green job, but it's how you do it and why you're doing it. So I'm here to kind of say, we have to have a kind of a green mentality and stop trying to, good job is a great thing. But right now, people are so hungry, they about broke that down to jobs. And what it means is we have to start saying jobs for everybody is more important than profit and growth. Growth for the sake of growth. I'm like, well, heck, Madoff got big. If we just want to look at growth. So I'm saying dignified jobs. And then when we say dignified, green, good jobs, that means a livable wage and a job that doesn't create waste we can't get rid of. Very basic. Kids get that. Kids get that. But if I send a young person to a Black college, when they come to, there's no financial aid. It's $30,000, they get $5,000. So they're borrowing $25,000 over 4 years, that's $100,000. They're coming out the door with $100,000 in debt and no job. They're getting calls that are telling them, you owe $500, $700 a month. They cannot even pay rent or eat, and we're talking about green jobs. So there's a level of frustration. So what does that mean to me? We know some of us that are older, it's like, we've been here before. We're gonna come out of the dip, and if we don't, they'll bury us. So that being the case, we're moving forward, and so now I'm trying to go back. I'm working with leaders like Dr. Joseph Lowry and others to say, oh, we're going to campuses. There are 40 HBCUs in 7 key states. What are those states? Georgia, Florida, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Texas, Virginia, probably North Carolina, okay? Add them all up, 40 HBCUs. We can't go there saying vote for this guy because of how he looks. The kids are like, we've been there, done that. So we are going with a message of we vote green, and then we break down what does that mean to you. So we are balancing the capacity to have work, invest, and have some of those innovations, because they're thinking of green apps and green applications and green products and looking for those investment dollars. So as we kind of bring them alive with that and then prepare them to be ready and try to work them through this difficult moment, they are so there. We're kind of behind the curve because we're still looking at taking care of them and everything else. So with that, I'd say the signs are great. Tribal colleges, you know, indigenous folks, they say they've been here, they always have been here, and so they have that long view, 7 generations, et cetera. So they're looking at going back to locally grown and kind of a lighter footprint. That too, if we can integrate and embrace all of that and pull that into this movement, then we can get the thing done. And I don't mean to dominate, but it's like one thing, if I'm sitting up here and I talk about energy efficiency retrofits, I go back to a campus, they don't have any money, I've done the audit, oh, this would be great. And then we meet again next year. So I'm kind of like not the one to hand on the panel for that, but anyway.
Well, speaking of needs and jobs, infrastructure is obviously something that our country has woefully underinvested in for a decade or so. American Society of Civil Engineers gives us a charitable D, I think, D minus, something like that.
Yes, for several years.
Right, and we have a deficit approaching, $2 trillion plus in terms of infrastructure needs. You're obviously trying to fill some of that. I was excited to hear you have an infrastructure fund. Tell us about some of the, not specifically, but the types of projects that you're hoping to help spur some investment in.
Well, our definition of infrastructure is that it's an essential community asset and it moves goods or people. And we really want to be involved in the community level assets, the smaller assets, the assets that the huge, the Macquaries, the Meridians, the big funds out there really don't even want to look at because they're not big enough. They have billions of dollars to invest and they want to do the roads and the bridges. We would like to be minority investors in those projects, but we really want to focus on the community level assets as owners. This will be an equity investment. So it's nationwide, and what we believe that we bring to the table is that we can mitigate political risk. And yes, we have political risk in this country. We have, Congress that can't agree on anything, and particularly infrastructure. Sure. So we, with our network of folks, I can pick up the phone and call someone in any community, right to work state, I don't care where you are, I can call and I have a friend and I can say, do you know about this project or what can you tell me? And they know everything because they are trying to create jobs for their members, and that's very important. I'd sort of like to piggyback on what you said because education is not just for the kids. We can never stop learning and educating ourselves. And our training in the labor movement is bar none. We are the people training the people who are building the clean economy. And we need to keep doing that and reinvesting. And to do that, we have to create, prudent investments for those people. We had a forum yesterday here all day prior to the conference to talk about responsible investments and what we call worker-friendly funds, funds that require union labor. And we believe that, trustees come and go. They work full-time as their regular job, and then they're trustees on pension funds, and that's not easy, and there's an awful lot to learn. There's a big learning curve, and we would like to see education be a priority there because with those funds, make the proper investments, they get recycled back into the economy in the right places.
So which is exactly what we need to do, absolutely. If you have any questions, you can begin lining up to the mics, because I'm going to have Steve a question here, and then we'll take some questions from the audience. But there's a microphone right in the middle there. If you want to line up, we'll get to as many questions as we can. Steve, obviously, your iconic brown fleet. Everybody knows it, even people in, the far reaches of America. And you've had some electric vehicles in operation since 1933, I think, and hybrids since the 1990s. But obviously that's a huge yield opportunity with your vehicle fleet. Can you tell us a bit about what you're doing and what your plans are in the future for continuing to green the vehicle fleet that you have?
Sure. So the skill set in sustainability is three components. It's economics, it's social, and it's environmental. And so to do sustainability well, you have to balance those three things. I'll give you an example. Today, an electric vehicle in a commercial application can cost more than twice as much as a conventional gas or diesel vehicle. But we're in a world where energy has limitations, especially the conventional energy that we use today. So if you have the largest fleet in the US, 100,000 vehicles worldwide, is it not prudent to consider alternative technologies? So we have something called the rolling laboratory approach. We tried hydrogen, it worked fairly well, we liked it, it's kind of hard to get the fuel. We have CNG vehicles, we have LNG, and LNG, liquid natural gas, is of particular interest because we have these Class 8 tractors, the tractor trailers, semis that folks call them, we call them feeders. We have our own name for almost everything. And so why do trucks use diesel and not use gas? Diesel has 30% more energy in it than gasoline does. And so compressed natural gas doesn't work in a diesel vehicle. Hybrid doesn't work in a large truck diesel vehicle. Electric doesn't work, but liquid natural gas does work. And so the skill in this is really to find what technologies, and it's not just about buying them, but it's really about using them. You don't want to buy a hybrid car that gets 35% more fuel efficiency and run it in Bowling Green, Kentucky for 160 miles, because all you're doing is taking a very expensive set of batteries and running it through the countryside. What you want to do is you want to use that vehicle in an application where it's start, stop, and you get the benefit of the technology. You want to make sure that it's built so that it's robust and can live in the environment that you have. So an electric car may work in New York. In fact, today in London we have electric cars, and we actually get a return on investment even though the car costs twice as much. There's a penalty in London for a congestion tax. And it's $4.70 every time you go in and out of the zone. It's something like it's millions of dollars a year. So now you have an application where policy has dictated an environment to address a number of issues, congestion, pollution, and an electric car is the right solution. It's a little bit ahead of its time. And so the skill set, we had our first fleet of electric cars in 1935. We had 12 of them in New York. We had a whole fleet, probably a little bit ahead of its time. But our philosophy is that we have many assets, and we believe that there is no silver bullet, and it's our responsibility as a responsible citizen, as an employee, to use the right technologies in the right place, try new ones. We were doing Bloom Energy before Bloom Energy was cool, which is a fuel cell. We did it in Alaska. We try technologies. We were the first ones to come out with some hybrid cars. We're trying hydraulic hybrid cars. So instead of having a battery in a vehicle, we have a little diesel engine, and we use hydraulics to propel the vehicle, which is about 10% more efficient than a gasoline or a diesel electric hybrid car. So the vehicle piece is one small part of a very big picture to address technologies needed for the next economy.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. We will take our first question if you just give your name and if you're directing your question to anyone in particular.
No, this is for the whole panel. I'm Tyree Smith. I'm the director for new program development at Georgia Perimeter College. We're a minority serving institution here in Atlanta. We have 5 campuses, 27,000 students. And one of the things that we're starting to do is talk about sustainability or green-based academic programs for our students too, because they're interested in it, and also because it seems that industry is interested with college graduates who have a certain skill set, and that skill set is geared towards not just the technology aspect of it, but economic sustainability, social justice, environmental justice. So I wanted to see first if anyone on the panel has experience working with higher education institutions on developing academic programs, and also what kinds of things are you looking for in graduates 5 years from now, 10 years from now in regards to sustainability and green technologies?
I'd be happy to speak about that from a
Sure.
business standpoint.
Sure, Steve, why don't you, and then if anyone else wants to talk about it from the educational point of view, Felicia.
So I try to spend what time I can with students. Really, that generation really needs to understand what these issues are, not just climate change, but the next economy, and water is a big part of that conversation. Certainly pollution, consumption, and especially population growth. There's going to be mega cities, emerging economies have demands, and so there's a whole dynamic. And so when I get a chance, I just did Georgia Tech, had 70 college kids in the room, only one fell asleep, so I thought that was pretty successful with a 2-hour conversation. I've spoken to a lot of the Harvards, the Yales, and they have an enormous interest in this. From the Ivy League all the way down to the community college, what we're seeing is young people, professors, academic curriculums are trying to figure out how to fit into this space because there's an enormous interest. In recruiting scenarios now, more often than not, we're getting asked about sustainability, and that generation goes online, looks at your sustainability report, and asks some pretty amazing questions. You know, if you're really thinking about it, it's an important part of a discussion for our life as we go forward. I mean, water is life. So to not think about water, and we're a transportation company. This year we're going to file with the CDP for water. We believe as an organization that we need to take a leadership role in water, and you'll see that. You see that now in our sustainability report. So it's an essential component. Different universities take different approaches. Science certainly has to come into it. Policy is an important part of that conversation. But awareness is the most important part. A lot of people don't even understand what the problem is. And so the curriculum should start with, what does greenhouse gas mean? What are the greenhouse gas standards? What are they trying to measure? What is life cycle assessment? Because once you start to understand that, then a natural curriculum can build from that.
Yeah, is Joanna Chu out there?
She is our director for Southeastern.
So
for
you've got one of
sustainability.
you've got one of the best at home, and there's a network of folks that are working on "quote unquote" education for sustainability. I would direct you to uncfbuildinggreen.org. So there's a link there. You go between there and Campus Green Builder. So in the background, there is a growing kind of education for sustainability movement where you have faculty and others from various places in the academy that have come together to look at not only interdisciplinary approaches, but what we're calling as supra-disciplinary approaches, where a number of, whether it's business, economics, some policy, all brought into the salad bowl to come out as salad, but to make it, to look at how are we going to systematize this? How is this going to work? So that effort is underway. There are deans in environmental sciences. There are those in environmental studies. The EJ folks are pushing some equity issues. So that's happening. And I would say I am a very staunch advocate for taking advantage of the freshman orientation and the freshman lecture series and the honors lectures. These are areas of the academy that are naturally interdisciplinary. So if we make sustainability kind of the theme, if you will, you can bring in people, any one of us could address that theme for college freshmen, whether you're coming from the financial aspect or the policy or the environmental studies or environmental sciences or engineering, et cetera. So that, that's one way that we're approaching it so far.
Are you volunteering?
See me after.
Maybe
it's
y'all can
possible.
talk afterwards. Sounds good. Thank you for the question.
We have 5 minutes, so if you can type in your answers, we can get all 3 questions in. Okay?
Perfect. Thank you very much. Yes.
My name is Abel Mabel Thomas, and I have an organization called Greater Vine City Opportunities Program, and I want to say thank you, Felicia, for your work. I have sort of what I want to say to Mr. Steve with United Parcel Service is the fact, thank you for your support of my organization, and I want to sort of talk about the 3 areas you talked about was environment, economics, and social. And I'd like to, at some point, talk to you about a proposal that might be a little bit outside of what you maybe are projecting for sustainability, but I think it might be something, so I'd like to get your card and talk with you about that. And then Miss, what's your last name?
Deb?
Felicia, and there's Debbie.
Debbie, Miss Debbie, you
She
talked
knows
about
me.
wanting to do a project you do projects in community, and so the project that I have right now, I just want to see how investment or capital groups be supportive of it, is I purchased a 50,000 square feet building from the Atlanta Public School System. It's sitting in the neighborhood abandoned. It's about a 101-year-old building, architecturally sound, foundation sound, and we were able to get a grant to purchase it. But sort of like a little bit what Felicia's saying, it's sort of now trying to find a way we want to turn it into a state-of-the-art green technology global community center. And so we've been going to different conferences trying to figure out where the money is. And so I don't know, maybe private capital may be helpful, and how do you decide which projects you pick?
Sounds
We have to get paid back. So you have to figure out how you're going to make that monthly payment. That's the bottom line.
It sounds like you maybe need to connect with some people afterwards to
Yes,
flesh
please
this out a
do.
bit. Thank you.
And I'm just going to jump in to say there's a lot going on in Vine City. So in Mabel's defense, I know that it borders on the AU Center is there connected to Vine City. So some of us are really struggling hard to look at how do we bring the investment in. There's certain things coming into the area. So opportunities like this are now a lot richer than they were a year ago.
Great. Thank you. Next question. Yes.
Yes, my name is Eva Griffin. I'm a student at Berea College. My name is Eva Griffin. I'm a student at Berea College. And I'm interested in relocalizing economies as a strategy for increasing, social, economic, and environmental sustainability. And some of the ideas of, for example, Michael Schuman or the Business Alliance for Local Living Economies, as far as local stock exchanges or more worker-owned businesses and different models like that. I'm wondering how you feel about the viability of some of those as the significance of them in terms of some of the objectives we're trying to achieve with better jobs and a better environment.
Let me tee off the discussion. Maybe some folks have ideas. I think there's been a natural progression back towards localization because you do this expand and contract kind of thing. And you obviously see it with food. I mean, that's a pretty well-developed movement. You see it with restaurants. You're even seeing it with manufacturing and consumer goods. And there are urban manufacturing movements in kind of trend-setting cities like New York City and San Francisco, where you have artisans, the creative class, who have joined with manufacturers, and they're making products locally for a local market. And so I think you see that continuing to expand, and I think, because I think there's a consumer demand for it precisely. I don't know if anyone else has thoughts about localization.
I'm noticing the local currency idea that's kind of jumping off in some small communities. I think that's fabulous because that means that community can really become interdependent and perhaps not self-sufficient, but close. So I think it's a great movement whose time has come.
And some things have to be local. Water is local. No matter where you are in the world, water is local. And Atlanta is a good example.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah. Okay, last question here. Looks like we have time for it.
Yeah, hi. My name's Torin Kexel. I work with Green Opportunities in Asheville, North Carolina. And my question is, I see a real disconnect sometimes between the green jobs that are coming to town and the people that are working on them. And it kind of relates to what she just asked about how do we connect the people locally. And I think, Ms. Davis, it kind of goes to your point that there's these starving college students and there's these buildings that they're going to school in and possibly living in. How do they work on those buildings? How do we get that curriculum to get those students working on those buildings?
Well, let me say that.
And real quick, just to take that, expand that idea, how do we get the people in the public housing communities? How do we get the people in the low-income communities jobs on their buildings, in their neighborhoods? And how do we invest in those communities?
I got you.
And I know we don't have enough time to do your question justice, but 30
I'm
seconds.
so that,
folks
you
have.
know, at the bottom line, the thing is it the right question? So thank you for stepping forward with the right question. So it's like, if we get it right, what would it look like? So for me, in my little small capacity, I have in the AU Center a program to train students, faculty, whoever will come to become LEED certified. So LEED, Green Associate, all the way through LEED AP. So that means that you have value. Number one, you can look at a project, you can assess it, you can work on it, and you're credentialed in a way that the university may not have provided. You also get a network this with U.S. Green Building Council and all the other enviros. Then you look at a project, just like you saw Abel Mabel step up and say, like some people would say, oh, she's just self-promoting. You better, there's some equity folks up here, and she knows what she needs is money. So you too approach that you have to come with the idea that's all the way formed, especially when you don't have capital. So an idea in search of capital has to be so crystal clear, so thought out, that all that's needed is that investment. With that, then these folks can direct you to who else you need to have the expertise. And then, guess what? You go fix the building. As soon as you have a way to get the supplies, you have the training, you get the job done. This thing, everybody is saying, we need employment. Yeah, but there's plenty of work. Go fill a pothole. So get folks going. And then if you can't do any of that because it takes money, then green what's around you. Then crime goes down if you just plant trees, plant flowers, do whatever. Greening that in terms of going into that community that's unemployed and not looking so great, clean it up. Just go in, say, take your buddies on the weekend and say, we don't have anything else to do, we don't have any money, so let's go just sweep up, clean up, and do some good work.
No, it's always good to get paid a good wage for something.
It is. But in the meantime, there's work.
Yeah.
Training is the key, and I heard about a great program that the state of Georgia has. Is it called Trade Up? Do I have? Yeah. And I don't know if you're Asheville, North Carolina. I don't know if North Carolina has that, but I'm going to research that when I go back to DC because I hadn't heard of it, and it's a great program to get people started in the right training to do those jobs.
It is. They should really announce the training that's been done. So. Come on, Deb, you need to run over there. And,
there she is.
It's called Trade Up.
Trade Up. It is a great program. I've seen it mentioned a couple times. Well, before we wrap up, I just want to say thank you for the great questions. Hopefully some of the panelists will be able to stay afterwards for the reception. We continue the discussion. Sound like there was some business to transact potentially too. But I want to thank Shannon very much for coming from Charlotte and joining us today. I want to thank Steve and Debbie and Felicia. Please give them a big round of applause for their contribution. Thank you very much. And as we're shutting down here, I know that Roxanne will introduce the next segment.
Great. Let's give another round of applause to our panel. Great information. All right, we have to keep the energy up because we have one more speaker. So good afternoon, everyone. You learned from this morning. Very good. Love it. All right. Well, it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. She is the House Minority Leader for the Georgia General Assembly and a state representative for the 84th House District. Representative Stacey Abrams is the first woman to lead either party in the General Assembly and the first African American to lead the House of Representatives. She is the CEO of SageWorks LLC, a legal advisory firm, and she co-founded and acts as Chief Operating Officer of the Insomnia Group, a firm specializing in development, investment, and consulting. Representative Abrams was inducted into the Academy of Women Achievers by the YWCA of Metro Atlanta in 2010 and is the recipient of many other awards and honors. It's my honor to present House Minority Leader Stacey Abrams. Please join me in welcoming her.
I don't know that I have any good information to add to what you've already heard, and I think I need to go see Steve about a job, apparently. I just want to talk to you a little bit about what's happening in the state of Georgia, give you the good, the bad, and the possibilities. The good news is Georgia is moving towards becoming a greener state. The bad news is it's really slow. But that's where the opportunity lies, and what I want to talk about focuses on Atlanta, but I think, and focuses on Georgia, but I think can be extracted and can be applied in all of your states. Georgia is spending a lot of money on projects. In the next 5 years, we are going to be doing about $3 billion in eSPLOST, meaning educational taxes that will be spent only on capital projects. With the citizens in this room, with the citizens around the South, there's a way to make those projects green projects. It's not going to happen naturally. It's not going to happen unless we ask for it. But I think one of the great things about the energy in this room is that we can ask that the monies that are being let for those projects be spent on green jobs. If you're going to be building a new school in the 21st century, it should be a school that has green energy built into it. If you're going to be building a playground, it needs to be a playground that's sustainable. But they're not going to do that unless we demand it, because we're the citizens paying for this. We talked a little bit about equity. There's equity capital that comes from private equity, but there's the capital that we as citizens pay for, and we as citizens thus should be able to demand that it be spent the way we want it to be spent. And I will tell you that the other side spends a lot of time talking about where they want their money spent, but we're too often silent about what we want done with the money. So first and foremost, I would invite you all to look at what public projects are being let in your state and how they're allocating those dollars. In Georgia, it's not only the eSPLOST, which is about $3 billion over the next 5 years. In July, we go to the ballot to discuss the T-SPLOST, which is the Transportation Special Local Option Sales Tax. That's $20 billion that will be spent in the next 10 years, not only on transportation projects, meaning laying roads and bridges, but all of the ancillary services. I know that North Carolina, Florida, Alabama, all of these states are starting to spend more money on transportation dollars, but too often we're not at the table demanding that those dollars be spent the way we know they should be. And so I will leave you with this. I know that you all have a couple of other things to get to today, but what I would ask you to do is first and foremost, speak up. Everybody say it with me, say speak up. Speak up. Speak up and tell us, your state legislators, your city council members, anybody who's spending your money, tell us what you want. So you need to first do what? Secondly, I need you to show up. Say it with me, say show up. Once you've told us what you should do, show up and ask us if we're doing it. Because as Deborah can tell you with Georgia Stand Up, we'll listen to you any day of the week. If you show up in our office, I'll sit there and listen to you. The question is, will you come back? Because it's just like a teenager with a summer job. It's fine if you tell them what to do, but if you don't come back and make sure it got done, it's not going to happen. So first you have to do what? Secondly? And then because I am nodding to Deborah, the third thing you have to do is stand up. When we don't do our jobs, when you have spoken up and shown up, if we don't do what you've asked us to do, then you need to stand up and vote us out. Every 2 years you have an opportunity to tell us to go home and to hire someone else to do this job. And so if I'm not doing my job, if your citizen legislators are not doing their jobs, then they need to be replaced by people who will. And I will tell you that that is the worst thing in the world for a politician to say in 2012, right before an election, but I mean it. Because we're about to spend billions of your dollars. It's not my money, it's your money. And if you want your money invested in the green jobs, if you want your money invested in training programs, if you want your money invested in low-income programs, you have to demand it, because we're not going to do it on our own. We are, and this is my last statement, and I'm sorry for picking on teenagers, but I will tell you that politicians, and Abel Mabel can agree with this, politicians are like 15-year-old girls. We respond to peer pressure, attention, and money. And so I will tell you that I doubt most of you in here can afford to do a super PAC. But the best super PAC possible is a super PAC done when you pay attention to us, scare us into action. If we don't act, organize to move us out. because green jobs are not only the future, they're the possibility. And so I applaud you for being here today. I ask you to go back to your home states and find your legislators and do what? First you want to, then, finally, and I will now shut up. Thank you.
So with that charge, that puts us to the end of this day. At 6 o'clock in the ballroom right next to this, we have a reception. We invite you to join us, have some food, have some drinks, have some conversation. Tomorrow morning, we have a full day of workshop sessions, and I think you guys enjoyed the ones that were there today. We start at 8:30. We know it's early, but we hope you'll be there on time. And again, this very handy green sheet has all the information that you need to find your way tomorrow. There will be volunteers guiding you around. And on behalf of all of us, thank you so much for being here today. It's been a really phenomenal first day of the Good Job Green Jobs Conference, and we look forward to seeing you in an hour and again tomorrow. So thank you.
You keep saying you got something for me, something you call love, but confess you've been a messin'